podcast, Isaac and I doing pregame and postgame stuff throughout this season. Isaac Alford signed on with Dan Tortora Broadcast Media and Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora here recently, and we've been able to, for football season, bring you our pregame shows. Last week, we were in a separate place, and Isaac and I had separation anxiety. But we're okay now. We got through it. We figured it out. I was down in Florida, where Syracuse is playing in Tallahassee. So I was down in the great state of Florida as Syracuse is down there as well. And now we are back here inside of the studio. So I thought we had a great show last week.
Yeah, it was
but
good.
It definitely wasn't the same to both be in the same studio. So welcome back.
Appreciate it, and I'm glad you made it back.
Yeah, so happy to be back here. We're inside the Cafe Cubal Studios, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, as well as 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse. Inside of downtown there in Syracuse, you'll find it inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital. And you'll also find them at 343 Fayette Street in Manlius and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in their newest location and their first ever drive-through at the Sweetheart Corners there in North Syracuse. So make sure you make your way out there. Shout out to Melinda. Appreciate you over the years for all your support. So hi to you as well. We're bringing you our pregame show for Wake Forest at Syracuse. We've done some we've done some post-game, like I said, this season. Very happy to be here with Isaac to bring this to you tonight. And this is a big-time game for Syracuse. Wake Forest is a top 25 ranked team. They're 5-0. They've won on the road. They've won at home. They withstood the test of Louisville and beat them 37-34 most recently. And Syracuse comes into the game at 3-2. We're going to get into a lot of different things today, but let's go back to the Florida State game. What did you see from Syracuse against Florida State that made you feel positive moving forward?
Actually, I came out of that game very positive of what I saw. The players would definitely tell you that they left plays on the field that, we got to score touchdowns when we're in the red zone. There was a lot of positive defensively. We put pressure on Florida State. I know there was some questionable calls towards the end of that game, but yeah, I thought the defense, made Travis had to move. And I think that was a smart thing on Florida State part of playing Travis instead of Milton, because I don't think Milton would have been able to scramble and avoid the defensive pass rush that we see the defensive put, on tape so far. And offensively, it kind of was that old magic. You saw Schrader scramble for that long run, and it kind of reminds you of Dundry running, 50 yards for a score and stuff. And it was good to have Chris Elmore back making key blocks and stuff. So, coming out of the game, it was a lot of positives that I saw, and I felt better watching the game because I think that they're going to compete in all the games. There's no team, I don't think, in the division that they can't beat, but they're just going to have to be able to execute and don't make mistakes. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, definitely, I was just upset that they lost in the division that they can't beat, but they're just going to have to be able to execute.
Yeah, I think any other time that they've gone to Florida State, they've come home and it was kind of that feeling of, okay, well, I didn't think they would win. They didn't win. Mm-hmm. And this time around, it was, wow, they gave so much to that game. They tried so hard. And despite the 0-4 record by Florida State, Syracuse has never won in Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. So, and Syracuse, since joining the ACC and starting ACC play in 2013, has never, ever beaten Florida State in Tallahassee, like I said, but they've only beaten them once.
Right.
They lost at 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, didn't play in 20, lost at 21. Or, pardon me, they won one of those. So, they're 1-7 that they've done it. So, yeah, so 1-7 in these situations where they've lost 7 games, including this year. They won one. It was at home. It was a few years ago. They won 30-7 against an unranked Florida State. They played Florida State when they were ranked number 1 in the country, number 2 in the country, number 17 in the country twice, and since then have been unranked. But to have never beaten them in Tallahassee and to only have beaten them once since joining the ACC in 2013 when they actually started play, there's something to be said about the fact that this game looked like it was by far the best game they've ever played in Tallahassee.
Definitely. I mean, you can look at the talent on the field. I mean, Florida State always have that great talent, but looking at that game, they wasn't much better than Syracuse. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I mean, Syracuse, you can see the recruiting and the skill players that we're putting on the field is now starting to catch up a little bit to the ACC.
Yeah.
And, exactly, I thought we was into that game. And I was like, man, if we could just make that one play. And some of those calls I didn't agree with. And, like the 4th and goal play, I thought he reached the ball over the goal line. To be honest, I thought Schrader was on top of bodies and reached it over. But apparently, the ref said, hey, forward momentum had already stopped. So, but regardless, I definitely thought that was a great opportunity. They wasn't backing down from Florida State. And they, like you said, they didn't take the record for granted 0-4. They knew they was going to get everything from Florida State. But, it was just one of those ones that, man, just wish we could have got that one,
Yeah, and obviously there was even I think one of the commentators talked about a holding penalty when Jordan Travis was running, and there's a lot of things that we could get into here. We got some some thoughts from Melinda here. Melinda, I appreciate it. Preview Wake Forest running game and how our defense matches up. Looks like this will be looking similar offensively on both sides. Also, what's happening with our kicking game this season in all phases, which is traditionally one of our strengths. So, I'll address the kicking game first.
Okay.
And what I'll say about that is Syracuse has been spoiled to have the types of punters that they've had. And I think, when you're featuring the Riley Dixons of the world and whatnot, when you see some of these punters come through, Syracuse has excelled with Nolan Cooney and Riley Dixon, hence why they get opportunities in the NFL to at least work out. And James Williams became the punter for this team, and he's a true freshman. Now, granted, I like James. I like interviewing him. I like his energy. James is a true freshman. So where Syracuse was kind of in this mold where they would have a guy come in, get the starting job, another guy would come in, learn from him a couple of years, and then he'd be the punter for the next couple of years. In the case with James, there was nobody to bridge the gap. There was no one for James after Nolan, so he didn't have that tutelage. So I think in the punting game, with the issues in punting the ball, and when we're talking about that, I would say that on special teams, James Williams is a true freshman. He not only is a true freshman that's played a few games, he's also been injured recently. So I think that you have to give him time because this is not a typical Syracuse special teams mold in the punting department where you had a guy who was set there, who you were going to learn under and wait your turn and then go. Syracuse didn't have that guy to bridge the gap. There was nobody to come in where James Williams could have a year or two on the sideline, and it's atypical for Syracuse to start a true freshman punter. So I think in this case, of the last few years. So I would say probably Dino's biggest challenge at punter thus far.
Yeah, especially when you, like you say, injury. Because, James, he's done fairly well so far in the season, but there you go. When you go to his backup, now that's somebody, again, that doesn't have that experience.
Yeah, 2 backups that he has.
So, yeah, definitely. You see that. You see the drop-off from the starter to the backup. So, yeah, is it an unfortunate situation that you, like you say, you don't necessarily see Syracuse in the special team area not have somebody with some seasons under their belt or some tutelage where they can learn. Because, like Sterling, that was another guy, that came in and held it down and did what he had to do and whatnot. But, I think they'll be okay. Hopefully, the injury is nothing serious and he can get back on the field. So
yeah, I think to have Riley, Sterling, and Nolan, it just became something that you didn't have to think about. Right. But again, when one of them is coming in, they're learning or that, so basically I think, it's kind of there and you're like, well, why is this guy struggling? Well, he's a true freshman, now he's not 100% with injury and whatnot, and he doesn't have anybody to teach him. There's no veteran in front of him.
Right.
I think the other thing with kicker, if you're asking about Andre Schmidt, of all the kickers that Syracuse has ever had in their history, and I want people to know that this list is very well put together and it's vast, the Gary Andersons, the Alindo Mares, the Nate Trouts. There's so many kickers that have come through Syracuse history that have been so successful. And I think when it comes to Schmidt, he's the only one that's ever won the Lou Groza Award,
Right.
which is the nation's top kicker. And that seems insane, knowing, the magnitude of kickers that Syracuse has had and that have gotten shots professionally. A guy like Gary Anderson, who was in the NFL for about 115 years. Alindo Mare with the Miami Dolphins for a long time and with the New Orleans Saints. So, I think with Andre Schmidt, he was the best kicker in the country. And I don't think he's that bad now. I really don't. I think, he's put himself in a place where he's made more career field goals than anybody in Syracuse history. And so I think it's, 62?
I think it's something.
Because he had 61 going into the Florida State game. So, I don't think there's any issue with him. So I think to address your kicking game, I would address the punter situation and the lack of field advantage there, because I believe Hawkins is the guy that's whiffed a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And Barber whiffed one, Hawkins whiffed one.
Right.
So I think it's just going to take time, and I think you're dealing with a true freshman, and then the other guys are behind him. So I'm not surprised that there's a little bit of woes there and growing pains. And with the kicker situation, I'm not worried about Andre Schmidt at all.
Yeah, Andre, I think, like you say, for him to come in as a walk-on, earn a scholarship, and then go out and win the Lou Groza Award, he set the bar really high for himself. And again, his career is great. He's all-time leading kicker in Syracuse history. So he's not really dropped off in his performance. It's just, like you say, you get spoiled. You see what he came and did his first year, and it's like, oh, man, he's automatic, But kickers are kickers, There's many different things that's going to go into kicking the ball. It's just not him. It's the holder. It could be if you're indoors, outdoors, whatever it may be, but more times than not, he's making that kick. So, but he's definitely one of the best. And for punting, like you say, in the past, punting has been the strong suit and the weapon for us to change the field position. And right now, we're just going through some first-time jitters for these guys to actually get their feet up on them and hopefully gain that experience. And, now you got a freshman, so now we can build up on that tradition again and get somebody there and teach each other.
Well, I think if people understand, Sterling had issues in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he became automatic.
Yeah.
So I think when you're a true freshman, you're going to have growing pains. I think the thing that's kind of funny is Syracuse's strongest position of the last. To be completely honest, it's like, pick your, what would you rather have? Syracuse's punters have been electric, and they've been nationally known because all Syracuse was doing was punting the ball on 3 and out.
Unfortunately.
Now the offense has gotten better, so now the punters don't have to work as much. So I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, okay, the punters are struggling a little bit, but the offense is a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, and I would rather take a better offense too. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's clear. The other question that came in here was it's about consistency, of course. Also looking at the run game for Wake Forest and how our defense matches up. Well, we know that Wake is a team overall. Dave Clawson, the head coach, who I believe got something that Scott Schaefer never got, which was time.
Yes.
And with Dave coming in at around the same time, he had said in a teleconference, I believe it was to answer my question. I know I was on the conference for it, and if it wasn't, my apologies, but I think it had to do with one of the questions I asked. He said, I told Wake Forest in my interview process to not hire me unless they were going to give me time. Mm-hmm. That, don't expect me to turn this thing around in 3 years. I need time. And what people don't know about Wake Forest, it's not a high enrollment school. It's a small school. And so it's not the Alabama or the Ohio State. It doesn't even have anywhere like that enrollment. It's a smaller school. So to have a tiny Wake Forest, and you got North Carolina and you got Duke, and these schools trying to obviously out recruit in your region, Wake is one of those schools that I don't think anybody expected anything out of. Mm-hmm. And Clawson comes in and said, if you want me to do my job, you need to give me time. Mm-hmm. And they gave him time. And they gave him an extension. And he has been second in the Atlantic Division. He's been first at times. He's been third. I think the most beautiful thing about Dave Clawson's story is he said to them, in honesty, I need time. I'm not going to do this overnight. They gave it to him, and he shows you what you can do when a school actually gives you the time and doesn't scapegoat you in a 3-year process.
Well, yeah, he's in, like you say, he's in North Carolina with the triangle there, right close by, and so he can kind of work under the radar. I mean, not that he was doing a bad job, but trying to build his program, bring in the players that he need to bring in, do it the way he wanted to do it. It's kind of almost like David Cutcliffe at Duke,
Yeah.
He had to get his time to get them to, to where they was for years when the Spurrier probably left. But definitely, if, like you say, but for just the sheer size of school, you can almost say it's almost a mirror image of Syracuse in a way. As far as student body, it's not really Syracuse is not that really big of enrollment either. But expectations, Syracuse has a history in football, so that one thing that makes it a little different, and the fan base that really supports the team. Not saying that Wake Forest don't get the support either, but definitely if you give any coach, hopefully, some time to do that, they can come on the stage and set it up the way they needed to do.
Yeah, and I think, and that's the thing. You never know what a coach is going to do, but Dave Clawson showed that he was successful. He was a guy that I loved talking to from the beginning, really from when he came into Wake. I think, it was 7 years ago or whatever. I've talked to him the whole time. So him coming in, being on the teleconference when we used to do them, I talked to him every Wednesday, and every Wednesday or Thursday, depending on what day of the week we did it. And I always was with him, and he was one of those guys that, maybe didn't get asked a lot of questions. Maybe nobody, and it was kind of like, Dan, why do you care about this school? Why do you care about this guy? And I was like, I understand. Like, I support everybody. I want to see everybody succeed. And just getting to know Dave over time, I'm very much a fan of the fact that he is so much better of a coach than people give him credit for. Mm-hmm. And he has made Wake Forest a program that's tough to play. And folks, if you don't know this, he's gone to, I think it's 5 or 6 straight bowl games.
Right.
So, this is a guy, 7-8 wins in a season, literally behind Clemson and nobody else. There's times where he's in the top 2 multiple years in a row, top 2, top 3 in the Atlantic, like I said. And I watched that. It's not like one game.
Right.
It's like, okay, 4 games in 5, where is he at? And, this year, 5-0 coming into the Dome, I think says a lot about what he continues to do. And right now, Wake Forest is at the top of the Atlantic Division. And believe it or not, folks, there's only 2 teams of the 14 schools ranked in the ACC ranked nationally. One of them is not Clemson. The only 2 teams ranked in the ACC this year, nationally, NC State at 23. Wake Forest is the highest ranked ACC team at 19. And, mind you, they're the only undefeated team in the entire ACC in overall record.
Yeah, execution. That's what his teams do. And I'm looking at here for points scored. They're leading in not only the conference, but I think overall leading in scoring. So they're going to execute. They're going to run behind their offensive line. We've seen them do that long hold on the mesh to try to draw the eyes and maybe pull it and hit you behind, on play action. But that's what his teams do. And if you're going to beat him, you got to actually beat them out their game. When Syracuse actually had opportunity to beat Wake Forest in recent years, they out-executed Wake Forest. They made Wake Forest commit turnovers and got the ball back and put the points on the board. So that's what you got to do if we're going to beat this team. We got to beat them at their game, So,
and you look at it, like you said, points for, they lead the entire Atlantic Division with 192 points for. They only allow 91. They are allowing cumulatively over 5 games. They've allowed 101 less points than what they've attained. They're second in the conference, only to Pittsburgh, who has 262 points for. But in the Atlantic Division, they are at the top. Just to let you know, Syracuse has 152 points for and 104 points against. And Wake Forest has only played 1 road game this season. They're 4-0 at home, so that's helpful. But this will be their second road test of the season. Melinda, we'll get to your question about the running game in a second here. But to take a look at this, they started off the season Old Dominion at home, Norfolk State at home, FSU at home, at Virginia, and Louisville at home. And the closest game that they played was Louisville 37-34. Old Dominion 42-10, Norfolk State 41-16, FSU 35-14. So they defeated them, and Syracuse just played them and lost in a closer game. At Virginia, they beat Virginia by 20 on the road. And so interesting here that 4 of their first 5 games have been at home. So, like I said, good to be in front of the hometown fans in Winston-Salem. And now they'll be on the road at Syracuse, at Army, home against Duke, and at North Carolina. So now 3 of their next 4 are going to be on the road. But Syracuse is their second road test. Good or bad that they've only had 1 road test?
Maybe, I won't say it's bad, but I know coming into Syracuse and playing in the Carrier Dome is a lot different than playing on the road at Virginia. So this might be really, noise factor. You get the fans in there, keeping it loud. This might really be the first true test that they're going to get, So, our team just got to execute and keep the crowd into the game because, we know how hard it is. We heard Hugh Freeze talk about how hard it was for Liberty players to execute offense. So, they took advantage of their schedule. They did what they had to do. You win your home games, and then they stole one on the road. And any road game is not any road game. All road games are hard in the conference. So that says a lot for them to go to Virginia and beat them. So hopefully this will be a tougher task for them.
Yeah, we look at their rushing attack, Melinda, to get to your point here as we do our Wake Forest at Syracuse live pregame show from inside of the Cafe Cubal studios on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora with Isaac Alford, who's joined the team, and myself, Dan Tortora, a.k.a. DT. Christian Beal Smith leads the team with 312 yards, which Sean Tucker goes, I had that at practice today. So, he's like, 312, chump change.
Right.
65 attempts. Sean Tucker, I think, had that in the last game. So, 65 attempts for Christian Beal Smith, 312 yards, 4.8 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns. Justice Ellison, 50 attempts, 242 yards, 4.8 yards a carry as well, and 3 rushing touchdowns. Christian Turner, 51 attempts, 205 yards, 4 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. And quarterback Sam Hartman, 31 attempts for 117 yards, 3.8 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns. That's your 11 touchdowns. So they don't have a Sean Tucker. They have a committee. And their committee is successful, and Sam Hartman's right there with it just about, that the 4 players that I mentioned to you, the 3 running backs and the quarterback Sam Hartman, are right there dancing with 4 to 5 yards per carry, which is something that you should never overlook.
Yeah, exactly. They pull one piece, put another piece in, and they execute pretty much on the same level. And that's kind of a good thing. I know it's nice to have a Sean Tucker, that workhorse, but in this sport, you kind of mentioned it the last show, you don't want to overwork Sean Tucker. So look at their recipe. They got like 3 or 4 guys that they can come in, hey, got a fresh body in there, and hey, we just going to business as usual. Hey, the next man up, hey, here's your opportunity, go in there and do something. So, that's going to be a key for the defense. It's no matter who's in the backfield, they're all capable of bringing and running the ball and doing the same things.
Yeah, and I think that, the thing that they have that Syracuse has not shown, despite the fact that they have Cooper Lutz and Abdul Adams, is that they trust in Sean Tucker, and rightly so.
Right.
But the difference between these 2 teams is that if a guy gets gassed, tired, bruised, hit a certain way, knock the wind out of him, if Christian goes out, Justice comes in. If Justice comes out, the other Christian comes in. So, the thing that Wake Forest has is they can essentially keep rotating, where Syracuse has shown that they're really focusing on Sean Tucker. But maybe this is the game where you put Lutz in or Abdul Adams. However, I will say this, and I finally got to do an in-depth interview with Abdul Adams, and you guys can, I'll make sure to share that so you can check that out. But Abdul and I spoke about why he didn't play. And he talked about sickle cell. He talked about, not having enough information out there, his concern with it. He also told me, and I don't know if this is news to all of you, I should probably write an article about this. He told me that the team is 100% vaccinated.
Right.
And that has not been publicly released, I don't think.
Right. Yeah.
That the team is 100% vaccinated. So that helped his decision. But my point I'm getting to is he didn't play last year. He opted out with Jarvion. I told you that I thought that was their way of leaving quietly. But now Jarvion's gone. Abdul's still here. Here's my concern. When I asked Dino about Abdul and Jarvion, it was kind of like, hey, we said welcome back. It's time to get to work. But he's kind of made it almost feel like, to the guys that were here. And it almost feels like Abdul and Jarvion, that Dino had a little bit of a chip.
Right.
And then I talked to somebody else about this, and he's like, yeah, I got the same feel about this. That, and you see Abdul's at the bottom of the depth chart, and it's not because of talent. Now, Sean Tucker's good.
Right.
But Abdul Adams, as I told you, you got Garrett Schrader, and you talk about having the ball and pull, and pulling it and whatnot. You got Schrader out there. You can fake run. I mean, if you got Abdul Adams or Cooper Lutz and Sean Tucker and Garrett Schrader, now, if you got three guys, they have no idea where the ball's going. And I told you, I want to see a split back with Abdul Adams and Sean Tucker and Garrett Schrader in there, and then, and Cooper Lutz as well. I would love to see a split back situation, which is something Syracuse doesn't use.
Yeah, very often. Maybe you'll get it once or twice in the formation, but I was just looking at the Wake Forest stat. It looked like every running back is averaging 4 yards a carry when they get in the game. but yeah, definitely they got to bring in more bodies. I mean, I would hate to see Sean Tucker get worn down throughout the season. And there's carries in that game for Abdul Adams to come in there and spell them. And I know Dino like to say he gives it up to the starter to, make that determination whether he's going to come out. But sometimes you got to do it. It almost, in the past when we had other running backs, it was almost a little too scripted. They would give two guys 2 series, and the next guy come in. But, you got to get the guys lathered up a little bit before you make those changes and stuff. But I think Abdul, we saw in the World Camping Bowl, that was a good outcome in for him. And he definitely has the talent, so why not use it? It doesn't make sense to have somebody like that on the sideline. And you, like you say, you could be using him in a split back, 2-back set. He could go out for the pass. You could fake it to Tuck, or whatever the case may be. So,
or put him in an I formation,
right,
and have Abdul and Sean, or Sean and Abdul rotate them in front of each other.
Right.
Fake handoff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or fake and go.
Right.
I mean, I just feel that a team that I've only said the entire time Dino's here that they should run the ball, and now that Dino's finally listening to me, Rob Drummond, other people,
right.
I'm not going to say he's listening to me, but we're now on the same wavelength. Now that they're finally running the ball, I find it to be ridiculous that, Sean's really talented, but, you're going to get this man hit. You got to spell him a little bit,
right.
Give him a little bit of a break. And I don't know why, when you have a team, and you got Josh Huff that might be sitting out and redshirting.
Yeah.
You got Huff, Lutz, Abdul, and Sean Tucker, and Garrett Schrader. There is no reason why they should not be in a multiple back formation of some sort to mess with the defense, because the defense knows Sean's going to run the ball.
Right.
And even on the plays that they fake it to him, they know he's going to run the majority of the time.
Right.
So it would behoove them to balance it out a little bit, just to make sure that his body makes it through the season.
Yeah, I know, I totally agree.
Because I know he wants every carry, but
right.
You know what I mean? I don't think a guy's going to not want it.
Right.
But at the same time, does he need to have his body hit 32 times a game? I don't think so.
No, and you want to protect the player, even from himself sometimes. You might get in a situation where you're having definitely a great game, but, definitely got to watch the number of carries you're putting on him.
Yeah, and I'm using a true fullback as Chris Elmore. In this last game against Florida State, where Elmore returned to the field, I got to speak to him going into the season. Mm-hmm. I'm close with him, close with his family, and getting to speak with him this past week. And check it out on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. You can see my one-on-one conversation with Chris Elmore, a.k.a. Rhino. two plays showed that he is his nickname. And one of them was when Schrader broke for that 50-plus yard run. As the field opened up and Schrader went, you see this guy come flying and just knock this guy over, and that was Rhino. Then there was another play where I'm literally seeing, people, just like this depth of field of just players, and I see this guy come flying through, and I'm waiting for the bodies to fly up in the air because I'm literally seeing a Rhino run through this pile and move people out of the way, and Sean is right behind him.
Right.
And I said, having Chris Elmore is, think about it. He was out 4 games. This is his first game back, and he made massive plays that would have helped anybody run the ball, get open. He's one of, and I said this earlier today. Chris Elmore is one of those players that Syracuse hasn't had in a long time. And what I mean by that is Syracuse has not been able to lean on a consistent player for a long time, and definitely on offense. And besides Dungy, you look at Chris Elmore and you say, wow, this guy was out 4 games. He comes in, and he made arguably the 2 best blocks of the season so far.
Yeah, definitely. I was watching, on that same side of it, I was watching Florida State blitz on the one play. But Elmore was not in the game. It was the freshman tight end, German. I'm losing his name.
Maximilian Max.
Yeah, Max. But Max got blown up. Yeah. That's the difference in the strength. But I was like, when Chris was in there, the transfer from Georgia for Florida State, he blew Jackson. Is it Jackson?
Jermaine Jackson.
Yeah,
Jermaine Johnson the second, I think it is. Yeah.
He blew up the tight end, and I was like, man, if that was Chris, that play wouldn't happen because the end result of that play was, Schrader had to get rid of the ball earlier than he needed to. So definitely you see him come back to the effect that he has on that team because I think I love his welcome to college football moment he likes to tell about when he was in practice and Zaire Franklin kind of gave him the little business.
Yeah.
But still that he's that guy that's going to bring that toughness, and that's what I like about him. And last year he saved their season basically playing guard.
Yeah.
And that's the huge, now you got a mobile guy that's fullback guard that's out there blocking. I mean, who wouldn't want to run behind that? Ask Mo Neal. Mo Neal probably got a few touchdowns running behind Rhino.
When I was sitting here thinking, Marone at one point used what I called the play the human wrecking ball, and he used Adonis Amin Moore.
Right.
And he would either give the ball to Adonis like a fullback and him run it in, or he would, because it worked 4 or 5 times, he would fake it to him and then they could go to anybody else. They could run to the outside, they could pitch it to the outside, they could throw it. And, with me, I look back to Adonis, and he's the last time I think Syracuse really had a guy who could just power.
Right.
And I'm partial to Adonis because he looks like my favorite rapper, Mace. But Adonis and I, he was somebody that was underutilized, and Elmore is the opposite. But the thing about Elmore, and this is what I love, the fullback in the pros is like a lost art. There's like 5 teams out of 32 that have one. And seeing Chris Elmore do what he did in this game, this is why you need a fullback.
Yeah.
And what he creates is, as the line is blocking, to just, I'm telling you, to see him run through that pile and just move bodies, and Sean is literally behind him, trusting him, he's going to make, he's making the lane, and Sean's smart enough to just follow him.
Right.
And I'm sitting here going, this is football. At the end of this season, when you say, what are your top 5 most memorable moments, I think I'm going to say one of them is when I saw Elmore just make a lane out of nothing, just literally cut through the shrubs, and here's an open road now. And I'm just watching him going this is a guy doing what he's supposed to do. And how many times have we said in the last decade that there's a guy on Syracuse that you just know, dang it, every player, dang near every play, he's going to do what he's supposed to do.
Right.
And Elmore's one of those guys where he knows what he's doing, he knows how to do it, and they don't just call him a Rhino to be cute. That man blew through that Florida State defense.
Yeah, and it was funny because it was, I don't know if it's the same exact play you're talking about, but it was a play, they reran the same play. And even the commentators was, speaking how well Chris was doing. When they ran the same exact play, they said how the Florida State defensive back was avoiding Chris now.
Yeah.
Because he blew him up on the first time. So, you know, that's what he brings. He's that toughness of the offense, and he's going to, you know, he has the support of his players and his teammates and stuff like that. So I'm glad to have him back, you know.
I think Elmore, to me, he reminds me of Dungy in the sense of the fact that, like, no one is going to stop him.
Right.
You know, like, you're going to have to rip his arms off, rip his legs off, and then you're going to have to chase his torso. Like, I mean, Elmore is, and I love when I got to ask him, I said, are we going to see more from Rhino? Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know, like, he's like a big kid, but at the same time, a scary big kid.
Yeah.
He's like that guy that's going to smile at you, but then he's also going to destroy you.
Right. He loves football.
Like all I know is that in my entourage, I want Elmore. Like, that's what I want. I want that guy that's smiling, and he's like, you said what to Dan? And then he's like all smiling, and then all of a sudden he gets Rhino.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, you're going to die today. Like, I want to be like, yo, Rhino, there's no parking spot. He's like, hold on. And then there's, like, you know, a spot right in front of the dome.
Maybe Marvel can come up with a character for him, you know.
Yeah. Well, there is a villain in the Sinister Six called the Rhino.
There you go.
And that's why when I say it, I always go, the Rhino, because he's a little bit of a Russian, but excited for Rhino. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Wake Forest brings a running quarterback. Sam Hartman has had time. He was thrown out there very young in the game, and now he's had the experience. He also has one of the coolest haircuts. You can go back and watch that video on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt of ACC kickoff. Every team, except for I think 2, we might have been the only one, of the 14 schools that were at the ACC kickoff, everybody sent a quarterback. Florida State sent 2. I said they sent the one for Syracuse. They sent Syracuse's +1. Syracuse did not send a quarterback at all. And here's the crazy thing. Leadership-wise, and I asked Dino about why he chose these guys, he sent Josh Black, Aaron Service,
and then named the rank.
And Taj Harris to represent the team, who is no longer with the squad. Yeah. I think that was more for Taj, that he was trying to get him to be a leader.
Yeah, I think he was trying to build him up into, like you say, into that leadership role. He knows Taj has the heart to be a player, but maybe his antics is not in the right place sometimes. And, it's just, you know.
And I think, Melinda, to answer your question, what has Dino said about using the full? I mean, he uses Chris. You know, I think the thing was he didn't want Chris on the defensive line. He didn't want Chris on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. He wanted Chris to play fullback. He wanted Chris to be in the offense.
Right.
And I think, Dino, unless Dino has missed every Syracuse game this season, well, I couldn't say that. Unless he missed the Florida State game, then he knows what Rhino is and what Rhino can do. Melinda, thank you for watching the show. Appreciate it. I missed the old rushing attack myself. Mm-hmm. William Pagan here. He is the father of Enrique A. Cruz Jr. Mm-hmm. And so we've gotten to link up. And he said, and I appreciate this because his family is Hispanic. I have Hispanic descent. He said that for Hispanic Heritage Month, which is October, mm-hmm. which I didn't know, and I feel like this is like a newer thing. When I was a kid, there was no Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
So with October being Hispanic Heritage Month, and you all being Hispanic, and myself being Hispanic as well as part of my blood, he said that Syracuse should call themselves Las Naranjas for the thing, like calling the Oranges. Yeah. Now, I think they should be called the Naranjas de Syracuse. That's what I think. And I think they should put Naranjas across their chest. But that's just me. He put this to me on Twitter. A lot of people picked up on it. Right. And so, didn't
MLB or NBA do something like that? Like with
the
Los
NBA
Angeles
has done some stuff, yeah.
Or like Los Mets or something like
Phoenix
that.
Suns had Los Suns.
Los Suns,
yeah. So, Las Naranjas, I'm definitely for putting the Oranges out there and making that happen. But a shout-out, that's Enrique. This is how it's going. Enrique, in our first interview, we talked about food, and his grandmother's rice. And we talked about, and Melinda loves it. Last Around House is best. See, everybody that's seen what you wrote loves it. So it's my job to tell as many people as humanly possible through all of October that you said this and that we should do it, because it's only had 100% effective rate, and so it's more effective than the vaccine. And everybody's like, Dan, don't get political. I'm not getting political. It's a joke. It's a joke. So, Los Lakers did it. But yeah, so Enrique, when we did our first show together, I said I'm going to run for president because they've never had a Hispanic president.
Right.
And I said I'm a Hispanic and Italian, and we also may have blood from the Sudan because of my family in southern Italy. So I said it would be a lot of things it would definitely be a collage that has never been in the White House before. And I said, well, I want to be president. And Enrique's like, I said, would you run me? And he said he would be vice president. I said, well, this is how it's going to work. I could be president for 2 terms. You can be my vice president, but then you can run for president, and then I can be vice president. So technically, we could be in the White House for 16 years.
There you go.
So, and his grandma's going to cook on the front lawn of the White House. So his family hasn't forgotten. He hasn't forgotten. And his father actually wrote to me and said, Dan, when are you starting the campaign? Right. I said, bro, I started 2024 like 8 years ago. So like, I am ready. So shout out to Enrique's family. And shout out to Liam, his younger brother, who shares an October birthday with me. October 30th, and I'm October 21st. Melinda said should be across all sports that we should have Hispanic Heritage Month. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like it's taken forever for African American people to be focused and appreciated. And then I joke but serious, but the irony of the fact that you finally get a Black History Month and it's the shortest month of the year.
Yeah. And
then there's no Hispanic Heritage Month, and now that's here, but it feels like it's been here for like 4 years. So it's good to have it. Yeah. You wonder, it's better to have it than to not have it. But I always say to the African American community, they gave you February. At most, February has less days than, even in a leap year, they have less days than every other month. So, I'm
petitioning for July.
Yeah. Petition for October, August. We'll share it with you. But, so Hispanic Heritage Month, very much appreciated. Yeah. Definitely want to get more involved with it. But Las Naranjas would be awesome. And I don't know, maybe I'll throw that to Dino a little bit.
La Familia. Why not?
Did you see what I did last week? I made history last week in my prediction. Did you see what I did?
No.
So last week, I made a decision. Let's see if I can pull it up here. So some of you know what I did here, and I made a decision last week when I made the prediction on the Syracuse game. I made history in doing something that I have never, ever done in my life.
Okay.
And I'll show you what I did here.
Sure, go ahead. All right, I'm going to do it. I'm picking Syracuse, baby.
Okay.
He jumped into the pool.
So with Papa Joe, I'll show you all here.
I'm going to do it. I'm picking Syracuse, baby. Thank you.
It's nice to be in Florida, though, right?
Yeah. But I jumped with all my clothes on. I wasn't wearing, like, swimming trunks. Like, I jumped boxers, shorts,
right.
The T-shirt I just bought. I jumped with everything on. But I was thinking the whole time, I go, I'm doing the show in front of a pool. I'm making predictions. Why not go over the top? And then I wrote to Dino and I said, you better win because I just jumped in the pool for you. And they lost at the last second. So
yeah.
Now, Melinda said SU needs to properly recognize all heritage representing among our students and alumni.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should celebrate everybody. I don't think there's anybody that shouldn't feel celebrated or appreciated.
Recognition for all cultures should be a standard.
Listen, I'm going to put it to you like this. Most people eat quesadillas and tacos. Mm. Most people eat Italian food. You know what I mean? It's like, so from my heritage that I can speak to, I'm like, y'all eat my food, why don't y'all celebrate me? And my issue with St. Patrick's Day is that St. Patrick is Italian, and he was sent to Northern Ireland to convert people to Catholicism, but he's Italian. He's not Irish. And so they gave us St. Joseph's Day. There's no parade. Nobody cares. Nobody even knows what day it's on.
What is that?
So, right. So it pisses me off that it's like Italians are so ingrained into culture, yet St. Patrick's Day is wrong. St. Joseph's Day is not even recognized. And, and then on the Hispanic side, I mean, even my family, I wasn't told till I was 14. Mm-hmm. And I was with my grandmother and my dad. And I said to my grandma, I said, I love being 100% Italian. We were having veal parmesan. I'm eating it. And she goes, you're not 100% Italian. I said, yeah, okay, funny joke, Grandma. I'm eating it. And she goes, you're not 100% Italian. She got mad. And I said, what are you talking about? And she looks at my dad, she looks at me, she goes, you are part Hispanic. It's like, you're part Spanish. And I was like, I looked at my dad, and my dad just shoved more food in his face, and I was like, what is this, George Lopez, where I find out about my life when I'm older? And, like, nobody had ever told me. And then I went into school, and I took Spanish through high school. I took it in college.
Right.
I went to, Puerto Rico, and, when I went there, for the first time in my life, I thought in Spanish. Mm-hmm. So when I landed there, it took a little bit for me to like get it and adjust it. But within a couple hours, I started thinking in Spanish, and I had to convert it to English because my survival, like my brain, my thoughts were in Spanish.
Right.
So for me, I look at this like everybody loves the food, but people say wildly inappropriate things about Italians and Hispanics in front of me, but to them they can. And there's the N-word for Italians, which is guap, dago, guinea, and for Spanish people, spick. And I don't like any of those words, but I've been in places in college where people have used them freely in front of me, and they don't know that I'm Hispanic.
Right.
So they'll apologize, and I go, no, don't apologize. You thought you were within other company. Mm-hmm. You thought there was no Spanish people here, so I could say mean things. And I apologize if, saying those words hurt anybody, but obviously they're in my culture. I can say them. And I just remember being 7 years old and seeing in my dad's yearbook that they didn't write his name. They wrote SPIC. And I remember being 7, going to my dad and handing him his yearbook in his bedroom, and I go, Daddy, I don't like this word. What does this word mean? And he goes, oh, son, that's just my nickname. They called me Ralph, or they called me this. And I remember knowing at 7 that that was not a good word.
Right.
And then I never even found out I was Hispanic until 7 years later. So it was something that just kind of didn't feel right.
So was that something you're not, I won't say intentionally your dad didn't really tell you, but it just never really came up in conversation and up until that point?
Yeah, and I think, I think for my dad, it wasn't something that he was ever, open to. And nobody was speaking Spanish in our family except for his great-grandmother, or my great-grandmother, Nana, his grandma. And she passed when I was 4, so I never got to speak with her.
Right.
Spanish. But, so for me, it just felt like something in my dad's side of the family that was, hidden. And then a few years back, my family on Facebook from Spain reached out to me, and they watched the show 5 hours ahead of time. They write to me. They just found out my cousin had a stroke, and they messaged me to make sure she was okay, because we're all related. But I think for me, I've never seen color. I just see how people treat me, how people treat people. And so, I've never seen color, money, background, I don't care. And so I think, for me, I was brought up that the N-word was, the worst word you could say. Mm-hmm. Then learning of the S-word, and then being in a work environment where I really realized that Italians have been in the American culture for so long that people say N-word Italian words, and they just think that it's normal conversation. Guinea, dago, wop, all of that stuff that you hear, that's our N-word.
Oh, yeah, all that stuff is derogatory.
And I think that because people have just, become accustomed to Italians and they just consider Italians, part of America now, that it's weird that it's Hispanics are still 1 foot in, but not everybody lets 2 feet in. African Americans, not everybody lets 2 feet in. But Italians, it's like they're in, so we're allowed to say these words because, they don't care.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times you walk up and down an elementary, hallway or a high school hallway here in central New York, and you hear somebody say something, and you kind of just look, and to them it's like, it's not a bad word.
Right.
Like, don't say the N word, but you can say the W word. Right. And to me, WAP means without papers. It's what they used to write on the shirts of, like, Italians when they came over and they didn't have their working papers. They would write it on your shirt, like branding you, that you don't have a job or whatever. And so it doesn't mean anything, but it's what it's taken as.
Right.
And I think that you can speak to this very well, that a word can take on meaning depending on who's saying it.
Yeah, depending on who's saying it, and if you choose to give it that power too. If you yourself, you definitely it shouldn't have that effect on you. But yeah, people out here with it's just ignorance that make those statements and stuff. But in the end, we kind of a lot closer to each other than what we realize. There's just a lot of people out here trying to separate us, and you know what I'm saying. So,
well, I put a quote out today. I wrote a quote today, and I'll read you exactly what I said, because it's right with what Isaac just stated. I said earlier today, and I just felt the need to share it with everybody. We live in a world where so many people want to choose a side and want you to choose a side. I believe we have to choose each other.
Right.
That is the only path to find true peace. To choose to love one another and realize we all come from the same God. So, to me, there are a lot of powers that be right now that seek to make people hate each other.
Yeah.
Of religion, of sexual orientation, of sexual gender, of race, whatever, and money. And I think that people that are smart enough and hip to the game understand that, if Isaac was purple with orange polka dots, you'd be sitting here. Mm-hmm. If I was green and had a tail, I'd be sitting here.
Right.
So I think, for me, I don't live in that world, and I feel very blessed to not have seen this in horrible ways, because I know some people have seen it in horrific ways, but when you see or hear something and you take a step back, when I hear people talk about women a certain way, you don't have to be a woman to care.
Right.
You don't have to be... If somebody says the N-word in front of me, I address it. If they say it again, I address it. But if I have to address it multiple times, then I get to the... I'm not going to sit with you if you say this word. This is why you shouldn't say this word. I'm not going to... I can't force you not to do it. But there's people that we are no longer friends because of one word that came out of their mouth. Right. And they disrespected one of my friends when they did it. And they sat and had lunch with my friend. And after he got up from the table, and I'm leaving him unnamed because I feel terrible that this... And he doesn't even... Because he was walking out the door... Is this person I knew was racist. I thought, hey, if we have lunch with my buddy, maybe it'll change his mind.
Right.
If he realizes we're all the same, there literally is nothing different. And he talked to him. He was nice to him. He got up from the table. He went to pay his bill. And this guy looks at me. The guy's not even 3 steps out the door. He said, don't ever do that to me again. And I said, don't ever do what to you? He said, don't ever let an N sit with me again. There's people in this restaurant that know me, and it's embarrassing.
Right.
And I went, oh, well, that's not his name. But if you'd like to bring me back in, if you'd like me to bring him back in here, I'd be more than happy to have him sit with you so that you can say that to his face.
Right.
Because you just told him positive things, and you just acted like you wanted to see him again, and he's not even 3 steps out the door, and you're calling him this, and you're saying, and this is 5-6 years ago.
Right.
This isn't 50 years ago.
Right. Yeah. It's sad that people live in that type of mentality. So, but
Melinda said here, 20th century speech encompassed a lot of terminology that was derogatory to different cultures, ethnicity, gender, sexuality. Still work to do moving into the 21st century, and we're in 2021. You know, and I agree. And I think, you know, it was interesting when things happened and with George Floyd and all of that, and when I spoke about different pieces of things, and Black Lives Matter, what does that mean? Does it mean that everyone's life doesn't matter? No. And I wasn't educated in the beginning, and I'll admit that.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple months in, I spoke to a bunch of people that I'm friends with that just so happen to be in the African American culture, and I said, this is what I'm gathering. What I understand is when you say Black Lives Matter, you're not saying everybody else doesn't. You're saying if everybody's life matters, then why isn't ours being treated the same way?
Right.
And that's what I took. And I think that take all the radical people out of it, take all the opportunistic people out of it, take all the people out of it that are trying to seek anarchy and break us all apart. To the people that actually care about Hispanics' life and women and white people, black people, brown people, blue people. There's not a human being on this planet that God didn't make in his image and that God doesn't love.
Right.
And I know that some of you have faith that listen to this show, and I know that some of you don't. But I do. And as much as I respect you for whatever you have, I ask you to respect me, that I'm not going to hide who I am, just like I never ask you to hide who you are. My faith in God dictates to me that there is not a human being on this planet that doesn't deserve to be loved. And when you break it all down, Isaac and I have different jobs that we've grown up doing, come from different places, have lived in different states, you know, have different shades of color on our skin. But if we were to write down on paper what we want, I would tell you that whether it's Isaac, Steve, Pat, Julie, Samantha, Tanisha, whoever would sit in this chair would say, I want health, safety, happiness, I want freedom. I want to have the opportunity to do what I love and love what I do. I want to live my dreams. I want to make enough money to pay my bills. I want to have extra money to do things I want to do. I want my kids to have a good education. I want to live in a safe neighborhood. I want food, shelter, and clothing. I don't think there's a human being on this planet that's logical that doesn't want the exact same things.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, everybody wants those things, and we definitely, we're all the same. We're all one family, and that definitely, is something that everybody should be given the opportunity to, aspire or seek and enjoy a life, without any kind of ill will or strife amongst each other's type. So,
well, and I think one of the saddest things that I ever heard was from my friend Rick when I spent a lot of time, and it's not something that, we couldn't talk about or didn't talk about before, but with everything going on in the world, I spent more time saying, you know what, let's discuss what's wrong. Because as a broadcaster, I don't feel right turning this mic on and not saying anything about what I'm seeing or hearing, because I feel like I have an obligation to lead. And in that, I spoke with Rick, and we did a Facebook video picture-in-picture, and Rick and I were talking, and we've had incredible conversations about really inspiring things that have inspired me. And what got me, and will probably always stay with me, is that Rick, as a grown man with 2 children and a wife, cried on air live, and he said, it took me a long time to love the skin I'm in. Because, Rick is multiple descent, and Rick is very, very dark skinned, and, from like the Caribbean and southern area and whatnot. So to have Haitian descent and whatnot. And so for him, you just kind of saw in him like, I had to learn how to love myself because people didn't love me.
Right.
And all I could think about was, you can change a lot of things about yourself, but you can't change the color of your skin. I guess you can do pigmentation. I know Michael Jackson did stuff, but like the reality of it all is he also had a skin disease, but God put you in that body, and I just can't even fathom and I haven't gone through this, but other people have. I can't fathom waking up in the morning and someone being like, "I hate you." Why? Because you're dark.
Right.
And or I don't think you should vote. Why? Because you're a woman. Like, it doesn't make sense to me to take God's canvas and say that he painted something wrong.
Right.
I guess is what.
And in theory, that's what some people try to do, and and they use religion in very strange ways to try to justify their actions. But and like I say, in the end, we're all the same human race. It's just one race, and we should be able to treat each other.
Listen, it's a human race to get to heaven, and all y'all that are hating, you might get there first, but you ain't coming in. You're going to get right to the finish line, and God's going to go, hold up. That tape, you're going to run through the tape. You're going to keep bouncing back like a rubber band. That tape's not going to rip. So, I said there's a giant lever in heaven, and you don't want God to go, you know what I mean? So,
no.
I think how you treat people is how you eventually get treated. So, I know we're here to preview Wake Forest at Syracuse, but with anything, with my show or anything I've done in 35 years, when we have to take a step aside to talk about something that is far more important, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, life is real, man. So,
yeah,
like you say, we got to try to acknowledge everybody,
Yeah, and I love that. To me it's weird too, like, to say Hispanic Heritage Month. I would rather, like, every month. How cool would this be? Every month in school, we learned about someone in the African American history that did something incredible. Mm-hmm. And we learned about one Hispanic, one woman, one man, one white person, one Catholic, one Jew, one Muslim. Like, if I was in school and every month of the year I learned something beautiful about the Muslim culture, I learned something beautiful about the Jewish culture. I learned something about Catholicism. I learned something about African Americans. I learned something about Hispanics. How incredible would that be to say that in school, the teachers are saying, hey, in every culture, there's amazing people.
Right.
Because what I grew up with in school was like, you stayed in your culture and you had to like your culture. And on my grandmother's street, my dad's mom, that I spoke of earlier, there was only one house that it was all white houses and one house with an African American family. Mm-hmm. One.
Right.
I love playing basketball. I played basketball my whole life. So I'm, she doesn't have a basketball hoop. I'm dribbling, I'm whatever, outside. And the only two kids on the block that asked me to play basketball were brothers that, they're African American kids, and they were siblings, and they said to me, hey, do you want to play? And they were like 3 houses down, 4 houses down.
Right.
And I just went.
Right.
I didn't think, should I go? And I know that other people were like, are you going to be okay? I'm like, am I going to be okay? I'm like, they asked me to play basketball, and I'll never forget, a brown car drove by, and there's a guy in the car, and he drives by, and he slows down, and he looks at the three of us, and then he just, eventually drives away. But I'm looking at him going, it's 3 kids playing basketball.
Right.
What? And I said, with all due respect, if you wanted me to play with somebody, nobody asked me to play. I'm going to play with the kids that asked me to play.
Right.
And growing up in school, my high school had 773 or 778 kids. There was 2 African Americans in all 700 plus.
Really?
And I remember that in my elementary school, there was none until we had Marika and Courtney. And Courtney Samuel, he was extremely, extremely smart. And in 3rd grade, I was just killing spelling bees. Every year, just killing it. Getting free M&Ms. And Courtney Samuel shows up 3rd grade, Mrs. Kuno. And it was me versus him all the time. And it was that mutual respect. And I just remember, I loved that he challenged me. And I'd shake his hand. And I loved being around him. And he's one of the people in my life that made me a better person.
Right.
And to think, if I was racist, I would have, never talked to him. You know what I mean?
Right.
How could... So to think of the effect he had on my life as a 3rd grader, because in my head I didn't see anything. I just always have been close to God in I call it my inner candle. Mm-hmm. And there's just never been anything inside of me that thinks people, and I was raised to think stay away, if this person is this way, or if this person likes these people, or this person does this. And the older I got, I was you realize that gay people love people.
Mm-hmm.
You realize that straight people love people. And I remember telling my friend who came out to me one time, my friend Patrick from Ghana, he said to me, we had gone to see a movie, we were in college together, and I brought him to his apartment, and he said, I have to tell you something. I said, okay. And he told me, and he said, Dan, I'm gay.
Mm-hmm.
And then he put his hand on the door, and he goes, and I understand if you want to be friends anymore. And he went to get out, and I go, Patrick, get back in the car and shut the door.
Right.
And he looked at me, and I go, shut the door. And he shuts the door. I go, what are you doing? He said, well, my best friend, I think it was like Steve or whatever, he goes, my best friend Steve, of all these years, I told him I was gay, he doesn't want to be my friend anymore. And I said to him, I said, Patrick, if I decided after all this time, and all of our friendship, and everything we've done, and all of our laughs, and all of our time we spent together, if I decided to not be your friend today because you told me who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you were honest with me, I'm the biggest jerk. I didn't say that. I said a swear word, which I won't say on the show. But I said I'm the biggest blank in the world if I could delete all of the years of our friendship because you were honest with me.
Right. Exactly.
And so I think for me, there's things that were like drilled into my forehead that I had to learn through.
Mm-hmm.
But I never ever saw color. And I mean, I tell you all the time, you know, people talk about stereotypes and stuff. All the music that I listen to, I mean, we talk about it all the time. My music was Phil Collins, and then New Edition, Boys to Men, Nat King Cole, Natalie Cole, Peebo Bryson, Luther Vandross, Brian McKnight, LL Cool J, Biggie, Bad Boy Records, Mace, Diddy. All of my music, 99% of my music was from the African American culture.
Right.
So to me, I exposed myself to the culture and the world, and I guess that was just like, as a kid, I just kind of was like, I like this music, so if anybody could come to me and say, you can't like those people, I was so into it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, why wouldn't I like Boys to Men to this day? Like, I want them to play at my wedding. You know, so it's just, for me, I don't know. I know that hate's taught and love is taught, but I just don't.
Yeah, you just took the words right out of my mouth. Because that's what I was going to say about kids and you that growing up. I mean, kids are innocent, and you can just see that when you go to a playground. I mean, kids are going to, if they're interested in the same activity, they're sports in general. I mean, just look at sports. I mean, what we talk about, what people do in locker rooms together. Sports brings cultures, people together.
Sports forces you to love people that are different.
Right.
Because if you can, and I said this before.
Because it's not about skin color or what. If you're an athlete and I'm an athlete and we're doing the same thing, I'm going to respect you because I know that you got the same abilities or maybe more, and we out to achieve the same goals.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, the thing is, if you're blocking for me,
mm-hmm.
and you don't block because you don't like my skin color or like my orientation or whatever,
right.
If you don't do that, then we're going to have a big problem and we're not going to win.
Right.
So I've actually said this before, and other people have said it on my show. I said, if you want to change the world, look at the huddle of a football team.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in that huddle somewhere is gay, straight, black, white, brown. This person's poor. This person's rich. Like, if you really want to understand, I said, if the world wanted to finally come together and work as a team and have no prejudice and no racism and no sexism, all you would have to do is make everybody have to play on the field or court. Because in a huddle, there's no race, there's no orientation, there's no religion, there's no background. It's just us versus them, and we want to win.
Exactly.
Which is what you said. So, some things came in here. Melinda said sometimes it's necessary to go off on an important tangent. Respect. Williams said, I feel this team just hasn't clicked completely. When they do, I think they'll be special. I think they're on their way. Melinda said it.
I think they're definitely getting an identity. And, you know, they just got to put the right pieces together. I mean, they're not far off, but they're close to being, like you say, having something special. And they just got to stick together. You know, I mean, I know we saw it this week, but, you know, if another person gets the opportunity and the next person steps up into that that space, and hopefully they can gain that opportunity and do what they got to do. But I definitely can see this team. I think sports, and like we just having that conversation in general, like you see it at the press conference. A lot of times the players would love to say, it's us against not just them, but when I say them, I mean, they kind of reference in the media, but they kind of say we believed in ourselves. You hear that. I know nobody in here believed in us, but we believed in ourselves. Type thing.
Dungy said that.
Yeah, and I got that same feeling about this team from what happened last year.
Yeah.
Everybody's writing them off. Oh yeah, this and that. But I think there's a good core group of guys that doing it the right way, and if everybody gets on the same page, I think they could definitely build something that will be special. Maybe not this year, but definitely in a year or two, they definitely have something special.
I think that it's funny you bring that up, because I think that without even knowing it, but now I'm realizing it now that you're talking about it, I interview these guys every week, and going and being with Matt Bergeron, who I spoke with last week on the phone from Florida, and this week I was in front of him, speaking with Bergeron, and I just got a different sense of, and I asked him, I said, how do you like mentally, because I said so many people don't get this, like the locker room, and I've said this before about Jacksonville and other teams, I said the locker room that's the thing that can either kill or save your team.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, the locker room can make or break it. Nothing that happens on the court or the field. It could be the locker room. And I said, how do you deal with walking into the locker room and having 2 lockers cleared out, and there's no Jarvion Howard name and there's no Taj Harris? And he said, you know what? There's other people that can step up. Mm-hmm. He said, those are our brothers, but Damian Alford stepped up, Chris Elmore stepping up, and he said, like about Chris, he goes, if you need a tight end, he's a tight end. You need an offensive, you need a wide receiver, he's a wide receiver. You need a running back, get a running back.
Right.
And so I think that, as you say, like the next man up, I think what I'm realizing from Matt Bergeron, and it's really because you've said this that I'm realizing that I saw it without even knowing I saw it, is that this team is growing into a place where they're maturing, and the Matt Bergerons of the world and the Chris Elmores and whatnot, and the Damian Alfords, there's a different way that they're even interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's not like the guys, and I love that they didn't do this, because there's times where teams will hide this. But multiple guys told me last year we were feeling ourselves. Or like a couple years ago, like when they were 5-7, they're like, we were feeling ourselves. There's a bunch of guys that was all out for me, wasn't out for the team, and we lost control and we lost focus. They talked last year about the fact that the team wasn't together and we didn't have leadership.
Right.
And now I'm just seeing through the interviews that you brought that up, and now I'm looking through my glass again, and I'm saying to myself, dang it, Bergeron, it felt different. Not that he felt different. It's just talking to these guys, I feel like they're sitting here going like, we're in the ACC. We know we are. We got stuff we got to do. And we know what needs to be done. Like, I'm not getting ego, and I'm not getting excuses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a team that's going, we got really close, and we're getting better.
Right.
But we want to win. And I don't know, it's amazing that you brought up that point, because now I'm going back into that room from Tuesday, and I'm going, holy crap, I felt that without even knowing that I felt that.
Right. And it's nothing personal, like you said. Some people just got to make decisions what they think is best for them, but it's not, like you said, they feel like they're our brothers. We're going to probably still keep in contact with them. But, we got other guys in that room that are, hey, this is their opportunity, and they're going to take it and go. And like you say, it probably is a team that's maturing and it's going to do things, as a unit, and I'm looking forward to. But I just see that though, that this team, they got to buy in to what the coaching staff is trying to teach them. It can't be selfish, and you got to depend on the guy to your left and right, and you never know what might be the overall record at the end of the season, but these guys are going to battle for each other, and that's what I kind of take out of last. And certain pieces might not fit in the beginning, and I will give the coaching staff a little credit for trying different lineups or whatever it may be, and the overall record at the end of the season. But and again, it's all about winning, but
yeah,
but definitely they're probably going to mature into a better team and better players for that, going through this.
Yeah, I just feel like Syracuse is trending upward.
Right.
And I think that, sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to know what it takes to pick yourself up and get away from it. Sometimes you have to hit the ground, and I know in my personal life, I felt at one point in my life in high school, I felt like I was in a black hole. And I remember thinking, can God get me out of this? Why doesn't anybody get me out of this? And I kept looking for a hand, and I realized I got to dig my way out of this, or I got to crawl up, but I got to get out of the black hole. And it didn't happen overnight. I kind of feel like it happened over a couple of years, but
right.
But when I got out of it, I never went back in.
Right.
And I think for Syracuse, it's that realization of, okay, it doesn't matter if people believe in us. It doesn't matter if and thank you, Melinda, I appreciate that. But it doesn't matter about outside noise used to bother me. But by definition, what did I just say? Outside noise. So where does it belong? Outside. Mm-hmm. It's called outside noise. God didn't call it inside noise. He called it outside noise. He said outside noise is outside. So your house should never have the outside noise inside.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter what the media says. It doesn't matter what the fans say. It doesn't matter what anybody says. What matters is what these gentlemen believe they're capable of, if they're willing to work together toward a common goal, and if they believe, if they have faith, if they're willing to work together, if they're willing to be selfless, if they're willing to put their egos at the door, and if they're willing to trust in a plan, and to the coaching staff as well, when something's not working, to be willing to say, you know what, it didn't work. You don't even have to say you're wrong, but to try something else, because the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Mm-hmm. I said Dino run the ball for 5 years, and he didn't. In year 6, he's running the ball.
Right.
You know what I mean? But try something different.
Right.
And I think what it comes down, and I could have been wrong, but what it comes down to me is I don't care who's wrong or right. I care about these kids. I love these kids. And they can tell you that. They could tell you that 10 years ago. They could tell you that now. I love these kids. And every single one of them, I try to interview them all between thinking about coming to Syracuse, committing to Syracuse, signing with Syracuse, being at Syracuse, leaving Syracuse, going on to do whatever. I keep in touch with, there's not a single person that I wouldn't talk to. Mm-hmm. Give me your number, and I'll have you on the show. And I want them to win, but what I want more than anything is for them to get the most out of their experience. I want them to build lifelong friendships. I want them to become even better people. And I want them to look back on their time at Syracuse or with anything. And I want them to say, Dan, I did everything I possibly could. I don't regret anything. I gave it everything I had. I gave it all I had and we went 3-9. I gave it all we had and we went 9-3. I just want these men and women to say to me, anybody that I meet, to say to me, mm-hmm. win, lose, or draw, I gave my life my all.
Right.
Because you're never going to fail if you do that.
Right.
And I think what Syracuse needs to understand, and these fans need to understand, and I want to say this to the fans, I'm going to look at the camera when I say this because I want to really tell you this. Because I've said it before, but I want to be clear. You spent almost 2 years away from the Dome. From November of 2019 to September of 2021. The games went on without you. I was there. So the team doesn't need you to play. The team doesn't need you to win or lose. But what the team really does appreciate is that if you're going to come to the game, whether it's 1,000 of you or 50,000 of you, is that you come to the game, you sit in the stands, and you watch them the whole way through. I thought in my head, there's no way in hell these kids don't see it. And years ago, I asked Austin Wilson, the quarterback, and he said, Dan, I said, when you lost to Clemson, I saw this one woman get up, and she clapped and cheered. And all these other people got up, like 20 people, whatever. They got up and they cheered, and he goes, yeah, that's nice for a change, huh?
Yeah.
And I said, do you see them leave? And he said, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just, this year, had people talk about how the fans leave. They see you give up on them. And it's not about you. And you're not in the game. But what I'm going to say to these fans who are so vibrant when I write an article or I do a show or I'm out in public and everybody's got an opinion about the team. There's nobody that doesn't have an opinion about the team. Take that energy, and if you have the $15 or the $20 or whatever it takes to go to a game and you can sit in the stands and you have the ability to walk there or to take your motorized wheelchair there or to take your regular wheelchair there, whatever it is, if you can get to the dome and you have the means to be there and pay to be there, then understand that if you're going to be there for these kids, be there for these kids. Because when you give up on them, no matter how strong they are, think about if your mother came to your game, your Little League game, and you didn't hit a home run and she left in the third inning. Think about if your father said, if you don't hit 3 threes by halftime, I'm never coming to your game again. That's what you're doing to these kids. So we're talking about family and community, and we're talking about love. We live in Syracuse. There's no place that's going to be too held up in traffic coming out of the dome. This is not Atlanta. So if you're going to come to the game, come to the game. And if you're going to support these kids, support them. Because anybody can support a winning horse, but when a horse is struggling in the middle of the race, and you're thinking, oh, we should just shoot it. Let's just put the horse down. Those kids feel that. No. And I want you to know that they feel that, and I want you to know that they tell me that they feel that. So please stop doing that to them.
No.
I need to say that.
Yeah, I mean, and I love those fan bases that stay to the end, win, lose, or draw. And some of it's tradition. There's things that go on that, at the end, those players in every game, they're standing for the alma mater. They're playing for the school. They're playing for the community.
Yeah.
They're out there all week long putting in practices to get better, to try to put a better product on the field for the fans. And I think, the fans, students, definitely this year, the student section has been outstanding, but
it's different now. Instead of being behind, it's like this whole long area now.
Yeah.
Students actually showed up. Well, I was hoping that almost 2 years away from the dome would make people stop leaving.
Want
to be there. And then you see in one of the games, like, I'm going to go home. And I'm like, the Rutgers game?
Yeah.
And they're booing DeVito and they're walking out. I'm like, bro, God is literally sitting up there going, you had this taken away from you for 2 years?
Exactly.
And you know what I mean? It's like somebody going, I want a lollipop, I want a lollipop, I want a lollipop. And God doesn't bring you a lollipop, brings you a big lollipop. And you take one lick and you go, I don't like this flavor.
Right.
And God's like, well, you ain't getting no lollipops no more.
Right.
How? I just thought, am I crazy?
No.
To think that fans, if for nothing else, should win, lose, or draw, should have cut the BS because they had it taken away from them, so that maybe in the last year and a half they learned that maybe they should just appreciate the fact that they even have a team in their city?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a good point, because many places don't even have that. And this is Syracuse, and I think the Syracuse fan base, not every time we talk about stuff like this, it's not getting down on the players or the fans, but you let players tell their stories of their time here in Syracuse, and when they go on in life or be professional, they will rep Syracuse fan base. I don't care if it's football, basketball. They talk about that,
Yeah.
The community that supports them, and when they get behind that team, that's just something they never forget. And that's just something that, sometimes players may leave and they realize, oh man, I've lost that connection that I had with that community.
Yeah.
Because this is Syracuse.
Like, how would you feel if you made a movie, you go to the premiere, and half the people left the theater in the middle of the movie?
Right.
You feel like crap. Or if somebody is eating a meal and they don't like the steak and they just decide not to play and they pay and they all just leave.
Right.
Stick around, support the team, be there for them, because, and William just brought up, he said, what it is for your parents not to be at your game. I wrote a story this week, folks, about Marlo Wax. His dad's not at the game, not because his dad doesn't support him, not because his dad doesn't want to be there. His dad's not I shouldn't say not at the game. He's not physically at the game. Spirit is there, I'm sure, with a perfect seat. His dad's not at the game because his dad passed away when he was 8 years old. So, just understand, please, that some of the best memories that I've ever had with my father and my mom are them bringing me to the Dome. I don't remember the scores. I don't remember, outside of a couple of games, I don't remember, outside of Akron and Pitt, I don't remember anybody else that I went to see them play.
Was that the Akron game?
Yeah, I'll never forget that game. I'll never forget that game. Every time somebody's like, the worst loss is to Liberty, I'm like, oh! I beg to differ. When I looked at the thing and I looked at the end zone, and there was an emaciated kangaroo, which for people that don't know what that means, it's a very skinny kangaroo that had a beer gut. It was an anorexic kangaroo with a beer belly, and he was rubbing his beer belly and spinning it around. And I looked at my dad and I go, look at this.
Don't take me
back.
Look at
this. I go, look at this. I go, we lost to an emaciated kangaroo with a beer gut, and he's rubbing he's jiggling his. I said, we lost to that. To that. There will never be a worse loss in my life than that. Ever.
Make it stop.
Ever. When Liberty won, I was like, respect. Respect.
Exactly.
They're independent. Good for you, Hugh Freeze. When Akron won and the belly's hitting the auto, I was like, if God was ever going to say, all right, I'm coming back, today would be the day. You know what I mean? And I want to be here for a while. I'm kidding. But but really though, that moment was the worst moment ever. But what I remember about growing up as a kid is I remember my dad brought me.
Right. It's the moments spent with your parents there at that activity. It wasn't necessarily all about the wins and losses as a kid. And you bring up a good point about the fans. My first ever game in the Dome, I think 2005, Walter Reyes playing Rutgers. The game is going back and forth. And I think Rutgers take a late lead. I don't even want to say it was late, because you know how the fans are. There's probably 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And the place just started, you thought, the
mass exodus, yeah.
Yeah. And lo and behold, Syracuse comes back and win that game.
Is that is that the Marone game?
No, this is, I want to say this is Pascalone's last year.
Okay.
But, it was a great comeback. And I was like, wow, I mean, people miss the comeback, and I don't know. You never know what's going to happen in a game. So, until it says zeros on the clock, why are we leaving?
Yeah. And where are you going?
It's even not to change the topic or the sport, but it's even basketball. We could be in a game, and it's neck and neck coming down, and you'll see somebody trying to sneak away.
Yeah.
At a commercial break. Stay. You paid your money. Stay. Get every minute, every second of this game.
Listen, unless your man or your lady texted you a picture of them in a hotel in downtown Syracuse, you better be at the game. Because if I ever got up in the middle of the game and I'm like, Isaac, he'd be like, bro, you gotta go. What the heck? Yeah. But I'd be like, look at us. But I'd be like, baby, there's one more quarter. You know what I mean? Wait. But yeah, I mean, I can't understand the worst fan game that I was ever at. The worst fan game that I was ever at. And it was when Syracuse was playing Pitt years ago.
Okay.
And I was with my dad. And it was the best and worst. It's one of my best and worst memories because it's the last time the Dome was so loud that it actually was a loud house.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad and I were behind goalposts, and my dad was sitting right next to me, and I literally could not hear him because the sound of people just screaming and talking the whole time. It was so deafening that it literally felt like I had my hands over my ears.
Right.
I could not hear my dad. So I miss those moments that haven't happened since. And the other, and I want that to come back.
Yes, definitely.
But in the Pittsburgh game, Syracuse is close to Pittsburgh, right? They're playing them tough. Second half, Pittsburgh takes over. The Syracuse fans at that game got so mad at Syracuse that the Syracuse fans in the Dome started cheering for Pittsburgh to tell the team that they were like pissed at them.
Right.
They literally cheered for Pittsburgh. And I was like, ew. You know what I mean? Like I was like, ew. Like in what world? Like there's no planet that I as a Jaguars fan would ever be like, let's go Patriots. Unless I was in the multiverse. You know what I mean? And then I'd jump through the multiverse and kill that version of me. But you know, that's insane. And what Melinda said, enormity of the stadium and fan support is what stands out for kids. 5 minutes to go hit the bus to the park. This is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you leave the Dome in the third quarter with 10 minutes left and you get home in 10 minutes, if you leave the Dome at the end of the game, everyone lives within 15 minutes of the Dome, for the most part.
Right.
Within 15 minutes of the Dome. Where are you going? Again, unless I get a photo from my lady that says, but what you doing right now? And I'm like, oh, I gotta go. But beyond that, unless if a guy says to me, I've got to go to my kid's Little League game, then go.
Right.
If a woman says to me, oh my gosh, someone, God forbid, in my family needs me right now, then go. Right? If I get that message, I'm a go. But beyond those messages, there's no. I cannot express to you enough, folks. There is not enough traffic in Syracuse to justify leaving anything. Or I saw traffic for this week for one of the shows at the amphitheater, and I remember driving by it, going, "Thank God I'm not in this traffic." but at the same time, that's every day in Atlanta.
Right.
That's I-4 in Orlando. That's life for certain. That's LA at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., noon.
2 a.m.
2 a.m., 3:15 a.m. Like, so all I'm saying to you is, where are you going? I would love to poll a bunch of people and be like, oh, I've got to get to my... Like, where are you going?
Right. Enjoy the atmosphere.
Enjoy, because this is the thing. You piss it when the season's over. You just moan. What am I gonna do for 3 months? I don't know. Maybe don't leave the game so damn early. There's only 6 home games.
Yeah.
So there's 6 opportunities. 6. That's it. And after Syracuse is home against Wake and against Clemson, they're only home 2 more times.
Already?
Wait, I think it is. Wait, let me think about this. Let me think.
It might.
Wait, no, it's one more time. Is it one more time?
They got Pitt last.
Yeah.
And who? Well, you got me thinking.
I know.
Does
Now
Boston College come here?
I'm trying to think. Maybe they have 7 at home this year. Let me just
I think
check.
they might have 7.
They might have 7 at home. So, but
And that's even better. You get a bonus game.
Right. So you look at this football schedule. Okay, there was 3 home games at the beginning of the season. So those are done. Yeah. So they do have 4 more. So you got. This is how I look at it from my lens. You play Wake on October 9th. You play Clemson on October 15th. You play Boston College on October 30th. Then there's not a game for almost a month.
Holy.
From October 30th to November 27th. Isaac and I are going to be like, what the do we do?
Right.
Are we get what we should do that whole month? We should just pick those 3 weekends and just drive to stadiums. We'll go to Ohio State. We'll go to Notre Dame and boo the whole time. Like, you know what I mean?
Leave early. Tomorrow's done.
Yeah. I'm going to start going to stadiums and be like, I'm out. You know, I'm going to get on camera. Like, when they show us on camera, I'll be like, hi. And then we're going to be leaving. I'm going to have a sign that says, I'm leaving early. I'm from Syracuse. You know, but like...
I dress in orange. They can see us.
Oh, yeah. But it's like, you're not going to have a game for a month. For a month! Like, seriously. And after November 27th, if they don't make a bowl game and you don't go to the bowl game, you don't have a game from November 27th to September. Almost a calendar year. So, if you're going to come to the Dome, sit there. Because I see you all complain about the ACC network. Don't watch it! Come to the game.
Yeah.
Because you know what prevents you from having no sound in the first quarter of the ACC Network game? Florida State and Syracuse had no sound in the first quarter
Really?
down in Florida.
Oh.
No sound in the first quarter. So for those of you that hate the fact that that stuff happens, you know how you alleviate that? Go to the Dome.
Exactly. Make all the noise you want.
Right. Be as loud as you want to, and then complain about the games that are away. But then you don't have to complain about the home ones. They missed the best part of the game always. Yes, Doug Marone thanked the fan. He shouted out the fans that left in the third quarter of that one game. I'm from New York City originally. Dome traffic is nothing. Oh, you're from New York City? Melinda. I have driven through Long Island, okay? There's traffic everywhere. As soon as I land in JFK, there's traffic to get from my plane out the door.
Right.
There's people in my way. There's people everywhere. So, yes, I get that. BC is homecoming, yes. Go to D3 games. Oh, that's also a good thing. You have Cortland and Ithaca locally.
Yeah.
So, Isaac, I have a thought now, and I don't want to put us on the spot, but if we're going to have a month off, should we maybe, do, a little mini wake-up call tour?
It could be a possibility.
Isaac's going to be off the air and be like, I'm going to South Carolina.
Yeah.
I ain't doing this shit with you. I'll be by myself.
Yeah. I'm touring down south.
I'm going to have a sign that says, I'm leaving, I'm from Syracuse, and then the back of the sign's going to go, and Isaac didn't even come. That's how much he left. He left so early he didn't even make it. But, yeah, well, if you're around, we should do something. Spend one of the weeks around. We'll see if we can make it work. Yeah. Yeah, he always retreats to the south. Smart. Very smart. Y'all got all that good food down there.
We got Chick-fil-A up here now, finally. Yeah.
I know. Now I don't have to, freak out and when I'm going down to Charlotte and get it, 8 times a day.
You back again? We know what he wants.
No, I would literally go to Bojangles,
Oh,
come out of the ACC kickoff, and go back to Bojangles. And, I would have it twice in one day. And then when you have sweet tea twice in one day from the South, you think you're going to have a heart attack. I remember sitting there going, and I did, they're like, you went to Bojangles yesterday? I'm like, yeah. They're like, where are you going to go today? I was like, Bojangles. So, that's stupid. But, Zaxby's.
Oh, yes.
I love Zaxby's. Yes. Oh, my God. The Zax sauce. Man.
No, none of this. No more of that. Just,
right? What Isaac doesn't know of is if he doesn't agree to do the wake-up call tour with me up here, we're going to do it in South Carolina. And we're going to go to a Clemson game, and we're going to go to a South Carolina Gamecocks game, so I can finally buy a hat that says...
We know.
They used to sell them at Lids.
Yeah.
But Lids that didn't have an Anaheim Ducks championship hat for me, but had a South Carolina hat that was derogatory and negative. But whatever, it's fine. But yeah. So back to the Syracuse Wake Forest game. Any other final notes you want to make about this upcoming? Because I have some thoughts.
Kind of basically what I started off with. Definitely, I want to use their game plan against them. We got to out-execute those guys. Kind of do what we did with Liberty. Keep the possessions away from their offense. We don't necessarily have to be the fast team. We just take our time, use Tuck when we have to, Abdul Adams, kind of fit in tight ends and wide receivers into the game. Just score touchdowns when we're in the red zone. And, play the aggressive defense that we can play. We can't be passive and sit back and let them dictate to us.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I have to prep myself for what I'm about to say. What I don't like about defenses and what I don't like about football teams is the same thing I don't like about people and relationships. Passive aggressive. So I need you to be aggressive. And I need you to be real deal and on it. This defense has shown me it has a personality. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that they feel not good about what happened with Jordan Travis. So, and Marlo Wax, let me just say something about my guy Marlo Wax Jr. Get off the man. Y'all asked him in the media when he answered the question the first time. Y'all asked him 4 or 5 times, What do you think about that play where he tried to wrap up Travis and he stopped?
Right.
I think he thought he got him out of bounds or whatever. And then, he just like watched and Travis kept going down the field. You can read in the story, Message in a Necklace, the Marlowe Wax story, the advice that Marlowe's dad gave to him, Marlowe Wax Sr., that he used in that. And he said to me literally right after that, he said, that's why I said what I said in the interview. Mm-hmm. That's why when the media asked me, that's why I said what I said. My dad told me, have a short memory. Let it go.
Right.
Don't think about it. Just move on to the next play. So let's all move on to the next play. This defense has been strong. This defense has been good. When's the last time you could say Syracuse's defense was good on the line, at the linebacker core, and in the secondary?
Mm-hmm.
Normally, it's one or none. The secondary wasn't good for 20 years. And now we're seeing a secondary that lost a bunch of great players and is still good. So the defense is strong. The running game is strong. It's the two things that Isaac and I wanted. It's Christmas come early. Garrett Schrader, I don't care. I cannot tell the fans this enough. Mm-hmm. Stop talking to me about his accuracy. Tommy DeVito's accuracy wasn't high. I don't care if Garrett Schrader runs the ball 100 times a game. As long as they win... And they, what he did against Florida State, I don't really think the offense did anything wrong. For the most part.
No.
So, let's be real. I don't care if he passes 15 times a game, or 30, or 82, or 6. I care if it's working. He scored 3 rushing touchdowns and 1 passing touchdown. What does that equal, folks? 4 touchdowns. Do I care how they got them? Nope. So, my note on Syracuse is the defense has been strong. The offense is improving. Special teams will get there. Trevor Pena's a friggin' beast. And I think that this is a Syracuse team, as Isaac and I have said tonight, that has learned how to grow together, shut out the outside noise, weather storms, and they're on a revenge tour. So I think that Syracuse is not a bad team. I don't think it's a team that doesn't have talent. I think it's a team that's figuring out exactly what their identity is and who they want to be. But I'll tell you, it looks a hell of a lot nicer than it looked last year.
Exactly. And I like what Garrett said after that game is, in the first quarter, it's almost like they were feeling out Florida State, and then they kind of, let's move on from the base plays and let's start putting stuff out here, because you could tell Florida State was prepared for the base stuff. So let's start getting to the other things that we can do. And yeah, like you said, it doesn't all have to be passes, and whatever's there, he just need to make plays. That's the main thing. We need playmakers, However it has to get done, just let's make the play. And the more we do that, then the more we can, do other gadget plays or whatever it may be. But execution is key, and just taking care of the ball. As long as we're not turning it over, we're all right.
Damian Alford stepped up.
Yeah.
Anthony Quealy has stepped up. Sean Tucker is doing awesome. Cooper Lutz, fantastic on special teams.
Mm-hmm.
I just see life on this offense. Last year, there was no life. Last year, it was just sad. These last couple of years, Dino went 6-17. This team was boring to watch on offense.
Right.
I remember you and I sitting there in 2019 going, what are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that to you anymore. I'm not sitting here scratching my head going, what the hell are they doing?
Right. And, we seem to be the team that injuries, when we take injuries, it always at the key positions that we depend on. And it's just tough when somebody else they're giving their all. They're trying their best. Don't get me wrong. They're giving the effort.
Lets the world know how important a punter is.
Yeah, exactly. When you don't have it, now you understand. But, yeah, definitely we've seen that offense, struggle when somebody else, it always looks good, or you always think the backup may be better than the other guy.
Yeah.
Until you actually have to put that person in the game, and you're like, oh, okay.
Well, everybody wanted DeVito to take the place of Dungy.
Right,
Remember
right.
that.
Exactly. So, it's not always green on the other side, but, but definitely this team is building an identity. And starting to fill in those little pieces here and there. And you have to change it up. You can't do everything same year in and out. And like you said, maybe Dino, finally, the light came on. Okay, offensive line. Running back is the strong point.
I kept going up to Dino and just spinning the light bulb, and I'm like, crap, that one don't work. Hold on. No, that one don't work. I'm waiting for Dino in the press conference tomorrow being like, I'm sorry, Dan, before I start the conference, do you want to? And I'll be like, whoa, thanks for listening to my show. Yay, Dino. But
yeah, I definitely see progress, though.
Yeah, and I respect Dino. I want Dino to win. I told him that when I met him. You know, I got to have a very candid, one-on-one, off-the-record conversation with Dino. So in true Dino fashion, I'm not going to talk about what we talked about. But I told him I wanted him to win.
Yeah.
You know, and that the interaction we had about that in comparison to other people he's encountered in the media, it was nice to see that he knew who I was as a person from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, Dino, yes, we've constructively criticized stuff, but I want you to win. Why? Because I want you to be successful. I want you to be happy. And not that happiness comes from wins. I want you to win because I want you to succeed in what I would think you love to do. And I want these kids to succeed.
Yeah.
And I know that, you make promises when you bring these kids in to their parents and their grandparents and their aunts, their uncles and their brothers and their sisters. So I know that this is important for everybody. And so I want nothing but the utmost best for everybody involved. And I will say this note before we go, is that there is a man, Dave Clausen, that we mentioned before, who always adjusts to Dino Babers. And Dino Babers never adjusts to Dave Clausen. So, Dino, all I'm going to say, from that horrendous, if you're a Syracuse fan, 63-49 loss after Syracuse was up like 21-0 at halftime. Mm-hmm. I just want to say, remember the New England Patriots rule. As a Jaguars fan, I know this very well. There's 2 halves to every game. Just because you're beating them in the first half doesn't mean you can do the same thing in the second half. Dave Clausen is a freaking genius when it comes to adjusting. And he's had Dino's number all the time. So, Dino, show me what you got. And let's make this game, let's make Dave on his heels a little bit. Because I respect them both. But I want Dino to bite back a little bit here. Right. And I want to see what it looks like when Dino fights back from a deficit or just in the second half keeps Dave on his toes.
Right. The pressure's more on them. They trying to defend their unblemished record.
Yeah, they're not home.
You're right.
They're undefeated. Right. They're on the road.
Right. So we have nothing to lose, really. We go ahead and give it everything we got, from my standpoint. So, yeah, I definitely want to see the team do everything possible to win that game. And then, we'll see when the scores, when the time off the clock.
Who are you picking?
I'm picking Syracuse. I always think Syracuse I ain't going to say always have, but they have a better rhythm against this Wake Forest team. I mean, out of any other team in the ACC, it's been Wake Forest has been the team that, Syracuse had that opportunity.
Well, when Syracuse joined the ACC, there were certain teams that everybody expected Syracuse to defeat.
Right.
Boston College, Wake Forest, NC State. In the Atlantic Division.
Right.
And obviously people have seen that that's not as easy as they think it is. Yeah. Because BC's gotten better. And
Lamar Jackson shows up on the scene. So
and
puts a monkey wrench in your plans.
There's a lot of good that's come through here.
Right.
So I want to look at the football history between Wake Forest and Syracuse. Shall we?
Yeah.
So since joining the ACC, Syracuse in 2013 on November 2nd defeated Wake 13-0 in the Dome. Then they went on the road, and ironically, this is the same score they had in their only win over Florida State, where they beat Wake Forest in their first ever game as ACC foes in Winston-Salem, 30-7. Then they came back to the Dome in 2015 and won 30-17. So Syracuse started ACC playoff against Atlantic Division foe Wake Forest 3-0. And they lost 2 in a row. They went to Winston-Salem and lost in 2016 28-9. Then they, pardon me, I got the score wrong. 64-43. I say 63-49. So 64-43 they lost in the Dome in 2017. And in 2018, They won in Winston-Salem 41-24. Then it took them overtime in 2019 in the Dome to win 39-30. Here's the funny thing, though. You're supposed to go back and forth. For 3 years in a row, Wake Forest has had to come to the Dome. Syracuse won in 2019, lost 38-14 last year, and now Wake's back in the Dome. I'm sure Clausen's like, why the hell do we got to keep coming back to the Dome? And I think Dino's like, yo, in history, we're better in Winston-Salem. So the reality of it all here is Syracuse has won 2 of the last 3, but they've lost 3 of the last, or pardon me, they've won 2 of the last 3, but they've lost 3 of the last 5.
Right.
And they have lost both of their last 2 games inside, or pardon me, they've lost 2 of the last 3 inside of the Dome.
Right.
So, Syracuse has another crack at it. You're picking Syracuse.
Yeah, I'm picking Syracuse.
And Syracuse fans, don't be mad at me. But I tell you that it is a cardinal sin to be partial in sports. When you're a broadcaster or a writer. When you're a journalist, you cannot be partial. I'm from Syracuse. I love Syracuse. It is my hometown. I grew up. I had an SU sweatshirt on when I was 1. But as a broadcaster of almost 18 years now, I always am impartial. And in being impartial, I have to say that what I've seen from Dave Clausen in recent history is he's had Dino's number. He, in the second half, as I said a couple minutes ago, he knows how to adjust. And he adjusts very well. Nothing seems to shake him, even on the road. They're 5-0. They're good. They've been good. They're getting better under Clausen. They're consistently going to bowl games, which Syracuse has not. And Dave knows how to respond to Dino. So I'm going to side with Dave in this one because of the statistical history, just the reality.
Right.
You know? So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And Syracuse is 4-2. If I'm right, Wake is 6-0. But I'll tell you this, Wake is a hard team to not root for in general when you see what Dave Clausen has done with a team that people even in North Carolina don't even think about.
Right.
Which is crazy for me to hear. Melinda said tomorrow will be a great game. P.S. It's family weekend. Lots of parents in the stands. Defense will win the game. So Melinda's got the defense. I know Dave can score, and I'm just like, can we get in the 40s? Can Syracuse get up there? But Isaac is picking Syracuse. I am picking Wake because I am giving you my honest answer. But you know where my heart lies. So we'll see what happens. As a broadcaster, I'm going with Wake Forest. We'll see what happens from here. Isaac, as always, I appreciate you.
Always a pleasure.
More than anything, I appreciate the conversation we got to have in the middle of all this. That was a lot bigger.
Yes.
We'll talk with you all soon. Have a fantastic night. From inside the Cafe Kubal studios, we want to remind you that wake-up calls, normal times, are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Watching on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/livenowdt, mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, where you can listen, and on the wakeupcalldt.com homepage. After that, you can go to the archives, or you can go to the archives any time of the day, any day of the year. Search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, YouTube, MixLR, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Just search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And a big thanks to our Central and Upstate New York partners, Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, Wildcat Sports Pub, Progressive Dental, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. Get your popcorn ready for all SU games and all games by going to maandpazpopcorn.com in any one of the 50 states and using my promo code DT20. maandpazpopcorn.com, DT20 at checkout. Get you 20% off. Avicoli's, Lemoyne College Dolphins, Pizza Man, Honda City of Liverpool, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, the Millhouse Market, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, PB&J's Lunchbox, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, and Mother's Cupboard, and of course, my alma mater of the Marywood Pacers and some Pacer pride. We'll talk with you all soon, folks. I hope you have a great, great night. And from Isaac Alford and myself, Dan Tortora, from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, as always, God bless, no stress, do your best. Melinda says, will there be overtime? All Isaac and I know is there was that one season a couple years ago where every game was 4 hours in regulation. They've been a little bit quicker, but these officials,
Run the ball.
I said the official was on like PersianWifeFinder.com during the Florida State game. He was trying to find that girl. I don't know. Or maybe he was looking at them text messages from the girl and he was like, I got to go. She at the hotel. But I don't know what's going on. But we'll see what happens. No matter what, we'll see you at the Dome. God bless. No stress. Do your best. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. All our ladies, gentlemen, and kids out there. Be well. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. And be good to each other.